Alright, time for another draftphysics.com video presentation. So, day 8. So we'll do a little bit of physics here in the beginning of a conversation where, ask science a simple question or pose a quandary, a curiosity, and get nothing back from the science except, fuck you, you're an idiot. Anyway, so there are these two experiments. You could take Newton's cradle and you could bang equal masses. It doesn't really matter. Same momentum coming in, you can expect the same momentum out. So 100 in, 50-50, you'll get 50-50 back out. Everything looks kind of right. Conservation of the movement of mass in the universe. Do this experiment where I take 3 of them now. So I'm adding 3 objects in the gravity. I'm creating more, obviously, energy. And it's definitely going to hit with more impact. It's more explosive. And it really should be thought of as an explosion. When 2 things collide, there's basically going to be a compression and expansion. Okay, it's going to be an event. And they basically, the physics says apparently that even though I have 200 in this case, 100 in, 100 out in this case, 200 in this case, only 100 out. I'm going to get the same thing out. So even though I have twice as much energy, frankly, this is twice as much energy. I've added 2 balls basically moving the same velocity. So I've increased the number of balls with velocity, the number of cars in the crash. So if we were to change the crash into, say, they're all coming from a different direction, they would basically say if I had an intersection, okay, and I just crashed 2 cars, it's the same as adding these 2 to the crash. The crash is the same capacity to move metal. 4 cars involved, 2 cars involved, same explosion, same pow, same stuff flying off. Even though I've added twice as many vehicles with energy. So I'm just saying that doesn't seem plausible. I added all this extra energy, the explosion takes place, and I get poof. I get the same amount of energy as if I didn't bother having this extra mass. Twice the extra mass. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's possible. It certainly isn't conservation of anything you'd call momentum or energy. Now, Richard Feynman described energy. He didn't say kinetic or momentum. He just said energy, little blocks of energy. And basically said you have to conserve it. That you can't make energy disappear. If it goes somewhere, if it leaves a system where you have it in it, you have to account for where it left. So you have to have some kind of friction. Like something could be falling in gravity. I could stick my fingers against it and it would slow it down. So we know where the energy went into the friction in my fingers. You have to find a place where the energy was taken. There's no bowling pins here. So it's not like these 3 balls hit some bowling pins, knocked them somewhere, and lost their energy. They have it all. So you have to explain this has twice as much power going in, and only half the power is going to come out. And you're obligated to sort of explain, well, where is it? Did the atmosphere take it? Where did it go? And they won't provide those explanations, frankly. So in 8 days, I've been trying to get an explanation, and they won't do it. They won't draw this and explain how it works. They'll just keep saying mathematically that you don't subtract here, but you do subtract here. 150 minus 50 is how it works. But here, no, it's 50 plus 50. Now that doesn't sound right either. Yeah, not even close. All right, so on to the regular scheduled video or something like that. Alright, I did do a couple of new 5-minute videos. So I replaced the one on the 3-ball bounce because that one does really require a very good measurement of the masses of the balls beforehand and exactly how high they bounce. And really don't have that data, so it really can't be argued without it. So I've replaced that with one on conservation of momentum. And I added a 13th video, basically arguing from another perspective, the argument that weight is energy. So there's two videos. One is called Weight is Energy and one is called Weight is Momentum. And the truth is they're all the same thing. Weight, momentum, energy, force, heat. Everything we call energy is all just energy. All the forms of energy are really in the same form, which is they can all be broken down to a mass and a velocity in the end. It's always about a mass and a velocity. It's always about momentum. And it's exchange in the universe. Descartes was very perceptive. For somebody who lived 300 years ago, he did very well. Anyway, 400. Yeah. Anyway, all right, so I'll move on. Alright, so I found this old thread that I hadn't seen originally when it was posted between Final Fantasy, yes, a long-time viewer of me, and physicist Michael. And I just thought it was interesting and worth pointing out that, this idea of having a debate is only purposeful, in my opinion, okay, in-person debate, when the parties are really belligerent, in the sense that they won't pay any attention to arguments made. Now, as I just pointed out, I've made a whole bunch of arguments in 5-minute videos. Now, a simple rule could be is you take 15 minutes to debunk the 5 minutes, and then you give me a half hour to counter argue. Now, he could do the same thing. He could present his physics, and then I could, argue the other counter evidence and point out all of that stuff. And then he could come back and explain how those counter arguments are useless. So in my opinion, smart people should be able to just do video exchanges on the specific elements of some disagreement, and it shouldn't be difficult at all. I'm not saying in-person conversation is all bad, but it tends to distract. It has, it can be so informal that you end up starting to talk about the fact that you both have a sister named Juanita, or some stupid thing. So anyway, so just with that context, there's nothing preventing, okay, the battle of ideas. There's all kinds of ways to have the war. And the fact is, they just won't have the war. Their intention is to blow up everybody in their house before the war. They're trying to destroy people even getting to the war. They don't want the war to take place. They don't want the battlefield of ideas to be a real rich place where the right man wins. That kind of thing. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. They don't want that arena. They don't want something that really will fairly judge and fairly decide. Okay, that would be my take on their resistance to do it in any other form than, again, all of my 5-minute videos are just on physics. There's no commentary. There's no slander. Come on. Just respond to the arguments. Alright, so it says, take up draft science and its offer. Get a few thousand in payment. Now, the fact is, if he tells me he wants $1,000 to make a response video, I'm not paying it. Even though I think I could probably raise it for my subscribers, that's just too much, right? Come on. This isn't, his channel doesn't have subscribers. It doesn't have an audience of science-interested people. It's not going to expand the conversation at all. And, the real point of payment is to expand the conversation. That's what we really want, is we want more arguments. We want more people making arguments, not less, or not the same people. Anyway, to be able to potentially expose profound irrationality. Right, I'm supposed to be really, really stupid and really, really belligerent, really, really dumb, and really, really all these things. And clearly, if that is all true, then just play the 5-minute videos and point out how I'm committing egregious errors because, yeah, I recognize that it seems like everything Newton said appears to be a confirmation that gravity happens in units of time, and it's about how long you're in gravity will decide how much energy you got from the gravity in free fall. you know, and they can explain how that's just so ludicrous a concept. Oh, how could you even think that could be possible? It's just so obvious. It's 4 times the distance. It has to be. 4 times the force. It has to be. Anyway, I mean, it's obviously ground for exploration, and they don't want any of that to happen. All right. The profoundly of rationality and uphold your position. There ought to be more scientific debates. There ought to be some. There aren't any. Okay, let's just understand. They once in a while will put a couple people together and they'll argue string theory or something. But I mean, frankly, there's really almost zero debate about the character of evidence for different propositions. I mean, how much debate was there about the idea that when galactic objects spin around each other and create gravitational waves, that they actually convert their mass into bent space? Did anybody even debate the idea? I mean, Einstein wasn't around to say spooky kooky. He wasn't around to say something to say, stop doing that. That's really ridiculous. No, there was nobody. Nobody contended, hey, wait a minute, where did you theoretically come up with this idea that you can turn matter into bent space? I mean, matter into photons, that's one thing. But bent space? What the hell? Come on. Not just people making claims and evidence without comparing two opposite states to see who's objectively right. So let's understand that they haven't, the first debate should be about the character of science that never does any experiments, right? I mean, 9 times the fuel to go 3 times as fast. That's a that's a prediction they're making. Did they test it? No. Did they test any of it? No. I mean, there's just no testing. Nothing. If we could, if there were experiments, we could point to them. And as I pointed out, the one that they used for hundreds of years was dropping round things into, denting clay with round objects. They figured that was a nice linear way of measuring energy. Or you could argue that rolling an object, with twice the velocity and it rolls 4 times the distance. They're arguing that the friction is linear. So no matter how fast you go across the surface, you vibrate the surface the same amount. Which I think, most physicists, if I said that to them, they'd say, well, wait a minute, that probably isn't right. I think Feynman would say, no, that probably isn't right. You're probably not jiggling it as much when you're going faster over it because you're almost, not on the surface anymore. You're almost not touching it. Theoretically, if you go fast enough. All right, anyway. So let's see. So physicist Michael responds, if we could find a neutral platform to have the discussion, I don't care if it's neutral. I mean, it's a public video, right? So I don't care. Let Mindless Marbles do it. Let Piro do it. Let Dispar do it. I don't care who moderates. I mean, it'll be obvious in the presentation of the video if the moderator is obviously biased. I mean, what's the moderator's role going to be? Exactly. I mean, most times when I'm in a conversational video, I don't swear as much. And, mostly not at all if I can help it. And I'm certainly polite. So, I mean, it's not an issue. So I don't know exactly what the moderator's job is going to be. I mean, if you want to go based on how much time we get to talk or something. You think that's a huge threat? That one of us is going to steal all the time? But anyway. With a mutually agreed upon topic, format, etc. Well, it seems obvious what the topic is. It could be multiple topics, right? I mean, yes, I would like to argue your entanglement. Okay, I think that's just ESP particles. It's just silly. The whole wave particle thing related to photons is just silly. Bent space is silly. Relativity is silly. So I could argue all those, but it seems obvious the first one we would tackle is the idea of what's the nature of energy in the universe. Does momentum matter or doesn't it? Or we could even generalize it to the idea of, is there any conservation law? Because clearly their physics is saying, I can make free momentum. They show the experiment, they make the free momentum, so they know momentum doesn't have to be conserved as an absolute total in the universe. We don't have to conserve the total momentum in the universe. And clearly, what they're arguing is there are certainly circumstances where the kinetic energy is destroyed. Every single time, okay? Every single time you bang, you do the 5-ton train and you add 10 tons to it, or you make it a 10-ton train and you add, 10 tons to it, or, every time you convert an object that's moving into a heavier object, you automatically lose half the energy by their theory, by doubling its mass. So anytime you double the mass of a moving object, you cut its kinetic energy in half. So clearly kinetic energy isn't conserved. So what's the point of having conservation laws, you could argue? That would be a subject. Anyway, sorry, that was a little long. I'd be willing to do that. However, so this was, of course, before things really became hostile between us, where, I'm not going to be called a flat earther. Just not going to happen. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing from evidence, from science, from drawings that are easily debunked if they're wrong. So go ahead and debunk them. But you haven't. You haven't taken any of my drawings and explained how I drew it wrong. However, I have already been trying to specifically provide evidence for my claims via experiments, right? So he's just redoing the same experiments that we've already seen. The one faked by Professor Lewin, for example. The one free energy experiment. So this is just him, like Brozo, saying, well, the clay experiment proves it. Dropping round things into clay, denting clay with round things proves it. Rolling an object 4 times the distance with twice the velocity proves it can do 4 times the work. So you just keep showing the same experiment and just ignoring the fact that, well, it isn't consistent with all these other experiments. That's a fact, okay? And if I fiddle with it a bit, if I throw my ball against a brick wall, again, you're in this weird position of saying, well, somehow, even though the wall didn't move, it absorbed twice the energy I threw the ball with. And somebody with a brain should pause and say, wait a minute, I can make free momentum by merely throwing something against a non-moving object? All right. With my testing physics series, I'm going through the best practices. So, this is all just textbook. And again, the problem with the textbook is it doesn't do all these other experiments. So it tells you it's 9 times the fuel to go 3 times as fast, but it doesn't show you. On how to understand and interpret data with the scientific critical thinking series. So he's just, promoting what I would claim are clearly unexpansive, okay, very in the box, very narrow descriptions of why you should believe. You're going to hell if you don't. I mean, the argument isn't very sophisticated, let's just say. So at least for my part, I have been trying to provide evidence. And likewise for my part, I've been trying to provide evidence. I have done numerous experiments on my own. And some of them to me seem quite conclusive. Just creating the oscillator, the lever that's oscillating up and down with twice the energy on one side that's on the other side, twice the kinetic energy. But the same momentum, is a pretty clear illustration of, well, yeah, momentum does make sense, but kinetic energy doesn't make sense. Twice the energy on one side? How does it do that? My claims. I am continuing to make these videos, including ones that will be more specifically address. So none of them addresses my arguments. Okay, so that's just a fact. Draft science claims. No, the 12 videos I have made aren't being touched by any of these arguments he's making. Okay, I have no intention of taking draft science money. The argument is that you're saying it's some sort of burden to have to debunk my arguments. So I wish to pay you for the burden. All right. Partially because that's not why I made this channel, but also because taking his money might open me up to potential legal issues. So isn't this a lame pile of crap? I mean, you really only need a paragraph contract to make it quite explicit that this is just your definition of a response. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm going to pay you to make a response. It's a public video. If you choose to whistle Dixie as a response, well, that's what you chose to do. So there's no, this is just such a fake threat. So instead of just saying I don't take the money because I love science, I don't really give a damn about making money off of it. Instead of that, and he has to throw in this thing impugning my character and claiming in some way that there's some reason to believe that I'm going to cause him some sort of financial headache. When what would be the maximum headache? I get the money back? What? I mean, come on, too ridiculous. If he claims that I haven't provided evidence or responded to his arguments. So again, that's, I can certainly make the claim. Let's say you did respond to one of my 5 minutes videos and all you did was go, okay. I mean, I would certainly make the claim that I didn't get my money's worth, but I'm not going to ask for it back. I'm just going to point out what a dirtbag you are for saying I have to pay you to do that. All right, he's already repeatedly made these kinds of claims. What kind of claims? That you owe me something? No, I haven't made any such claim. All right, so if money is involved, that's a potential headache I'm not willing to risk. So it's just such a pussy, weaselly excuse. I just say for anybody watching, come on. What a pile of crap. It's a public contract, for fuck's sake. So I've buried myself under a heap of asshole if I sat there and cheated you. And vice versa. So what's the issue here? You really think I spent all these years doing this and then I'm going to try to steal your work from you? I'm going to try to make you work for free? I mean, how bogus. What a bogus, accusation to make. I mean, it's just such a, and you wonder why our conversation deteriorated. Well, it deteriorated because you were willing to make statements like this, impugning my character when you have zero evidence that I have ever cheated anyone ever. Just amazing. But I'm still open to a debate if we could get a neutral platform and sort the logistics. What would a neutral platform be exactly? You might know some physicists, so maybe you could have a physicist sponsor the debate. That would be ideal, right? Not some nutter, some wannabe. But, then you'll have another physicist and you'll end up arguing with him perhaps. But whatever. The fact is we don't have to have a formal debate. We can debate the ideas. That's what the internet is just so good at. And nobody's using it for that purpose, which is really pretty funny. I mean, ironically funny. So, Final Fantasy says, if we could find a neutral platform to have the discussion with a mutually agreed upon topic. Response. You yourself could be the moderator, right? I don't care. Yeah. And at your own behest allow Amendum to make his arguments. Well, it's draft science. Of course, the rational implication is to be fair. That's right. It's public. So as long as we agree it's a public video, and you're just not allowed to, commit shenanigans, is there some doubt that you could do that successfully? Yes, that you could be fair to me? You can't do it? It's a good argument, right? All right. He's taking his money might open you up to potential legal issues. Okay, so his response is, if there is no official contract, I don't think he can sue. You can just get a list of exactly what he wants before he pays you. I'll pay him before he delivers, so it's not an issue. And the issue is, like I said, all you're doing, I'm just saying, respond. We'll see what you provide, right? Like I said, if you whistle Dixie, it'll be on you, not on me. You're the one that's going to look like the asshole. And then follow that with list exactly word for word. Well, we don't need any of that. I've been following Draft Science for years. He's basically just wants somebody to upload a video addressing his concerns point by point. Yeah, the argument should stay on the subject. That's what I'd like I like the physics argument to actually be on the argument of physics. So I mean, like this idea of why, okay, we have two competing ideas. Somehow the falling distance is all that matters. How far a distance you travel is all that matters. That's how much force you collect. Or the idea that, no, gravity is like a stream, a river, and it's about how long you're in it. It's about how long it's pushing you. All right. Okay. It's really pathetic. Nobody wants to do that. It's pathetic that you can make it so easy and they still won't do it. Why is it that people are fine with posting videos debunking flat earthers, yet they don't want to attempt to debunk an alternative physics model? Yes, well, clearly they all bailed on that one, right? The Simon Dan, all those little Weasley, baldy cat people, all these little people picking on retards and psychopaths. So all they can do is knock down incredibly, you'd have to argue these are people that have mental health issues, and they're just picking on them on the internet for money. I mean, it's just as bad as, making fun of a retard. I mean, it's just... And that's what science does. Okay. It just doesn't make rational sense and shows that people don't want to rationally debate the truth, only claim what is the truth, and ignore opposing arguments. There's certainly no fairness in people's approach. These people with very weak evidence won't admit, yeah, I wish my evidence was better. I wish I had video of the guy pouring 9 times the fuel in the gas tank. Yeah. I mean, they won't even admit that. I mean, it's pretty pathetic when they won't even admit that they wish their science produced more physical evidence. I mean, a little air track experiment is not the world. I mean, can you do it in space? Can you do it somewhere else? Can you do it somehow else? Maybe in Newton's cradle? Can you use some other device? Be damn interesting. But they won't even admit their physics has completely dropped that ball and done nothing. No foundational experimentation. But, quote, but I'm still open to debate if we could get a neutral platform. So this is Final Fantasy again. If more convenient to just do that yourself. Well, you said that already. Not go on wild goose chase to find someone who can. Well, like I said, I don't care. I don't care who the moderator is. I just couldn't care less. So pick the most despicable hater there is. Because he'll only demonstrate his own bias. And it'll just make it so much clearer just how crooked you all are. Okay, in a more rational, respectful world, all scientists, physicists, whatever, would be more than happy to publicly debate the truth, not just want to teach and want everybody to take their word for their claims. Yeah, well, look, we saw Professor Lewin, an MIT professor, right? And somebody challenged his 2 voltages at the same place, 2 different voltages at the same location. And the challenge was perfectly reasoned, thought out, and detailed. That basically the probe wires are a gigantic problem. You cannot probe an inductor. You just can't probe it. in its native state, because your introduction of the metal wires will change the induction of the entire system. So you can't possibly test the voltage without changing the voltage. Besides the fact that the probe wires themselves are corrupted. So not only are you corrupting the entire system you're testing, the probe wires themselves are corrupted. All right. A very rational argument, right? And what's Professor Lewin's response? You're as dumb as a flat earther. So, I mean, that's the problem. And the same thing is happening here. Okay, yes, he has invested a great deal of work into acquiring a doctorate in physics. I would expect that he would have a little bit of ego tied to that, and a little bit of, I demand a little bit of respect for what I'm saying. But he demands way too much, frankly. Again, I'm not saying who's right or wrong here. Well, clearly you are saying all of that in a scientific sense. Yeah, you are saying that. You're saying your one experiment is absolute proof and we don't need to talk about it anymore. Okay. I'm saying that it's despicable that people who seem to care about what is true don't want to have a conversation, debate with opposing sides. Right, besides Final Fantasy's opinion. All right, and then so Physics Michael responds. Oh, boy, this is getting long, ain't it? Yeah, this was a lot more than I thought it was. All right. In the same way that we want experiments to have controlled conditions, low levels of noise, and clear measurements of... So again, they don't have any of these experiments. So he just keeps talking about all these experiments, and there's one. You know, banging the one mass into the 2 or 3 or 4 mass. But that's it. That's the only one they got. Okay, on carts or air tracks, but not with Newton's cradles. All right, best practices for experiments. A debate that is actually about evaluating the quality of the evidence. So we already know you don't have any. Can we really have a debate about the quality of evidence when I can just point out, like, for example, the Eddington experiment? I mean, it's an absolute fact. He wrote it in his journal. He was expecting to get 10,000 stars per photograph. 10,000. He got 1,000. That's how bad the viewing was. He got 1/10 the data quality. And yet that experiment produced a New York Times headline, Einstein proven right. So I'm just saying, come on. And what, you know, this is so pretentious for you to give me speeches about how you care about evidence and its quality when you haven't done any experiments except one, which is the same as 1740, where they just dropped round things into clay over and over again and said, see, how can you deny the evidence? All right. Evaluating the quality of evidence arguments provided by the participants, and not just about performance skill. So what the fuck? So he's calling this performance skill. This video is performance skill? Jesus Christ, of the participants. So what exactly am I doing here that is, you know, chicanery? Am I juggling over here? Am I petting a cat? Am I saying how much I love you and you're such great people? Oh, I love you, YouTubers. Am I doing any performance crap? No. Needs to have clear rules and best practices. Would you agree to publicly play a card game when you haven't agreed on what the rules of the game are? Why not? If it's public. Yeah, why? What's the difference? Yeah, if I don't know how to play, I'll just say, I don't know how to play bridge. Yeah, no, I never bothered with that. Sorry, I don't know. Hearts. 10 hearts. That's the best I can do. I bet 10 hearts. Okay, same thing here. And rules and standards are only as good as their enforcement mechanisms. These are arguments about the historical truth and about the present facts of the evidence pool. This isn't a trick card game. There's no 3-card Monty here. I've been arguing this stuff for 2 years. I mean, we'll argue about, let's talk about why Leibniz believed. Okay, and we'll just, maybe we could even resolve the fact that you're a Leibnizian, not a Newtonian. Okay, because Newton didn't believe. Newton said 3 times the fuel, 3 times the velocity. That's what Newton said. I'd rather put in the effort to have an unbiased moderator. Well, again, he just keeps saying it. So neither side can accuse the other of tipping the scale. So again, I don't care. Go ahead and tip it. Take 15 minutes to every 5 minutes I get. I don't care. I'll agree to anything. Anything that puts my arguments against your arguments. That's all I want. I just want my gladiator, my argument, to have a chance to beat the crap out of your gladiator. Your argument. Your evasive counter-arguments. All right, the other issue with the live debate format is that scientific understanding should come from experiment and observation. So it's just, I mean, the duplicity of this continual statement that they have provided this huge, giant volume of evidence when they haven't even dropped things from a distance onto a scale. They've never done the experiment, putting the scale sideways and crashing objects into it to see, well, what actually does move the spring? You know, can I actually create the weight, the mass weight of an object by giving it a certain velocity this way and duplicate the force of gravity? Can I do that? They haven't done any of these foundational experiments, and he's talking as the conversation really should be about the huge volume of evidence we have and the fact that no one else can say anything because we have so much evidence. We've proved it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast. We've proved it so many times that how could anybody ever doubt it? We have proved that friction is perfectly linear. No matter how fast you're going, you're vibrating the ground exactly the same amount. We've proved it all over the place. We showed you all the heat charts and we showed you everything. They have done nothing. I mean, it's so amazing that he can talk about having any regard for experiment and observation when they have chronicled nothing. They haven't done anything from space, 400 times better resolution from space, and they haven't even tried the Eddington experiment. Takes 5 minutes. Oh, please. This is so insincere. It's so dishonest. All right, let's try some more. But man, that's really so annoying. Experiments and their analysis take time. So all this is historical. So a lot of these arguments are historical. Okay, the clay experiment's history, not yesterday. So it's not an issue. So that doesn't exactly match with the format of debate. So come on, what's there to debate? Again, the argument is that you know, there's this vague claims about how much a bowling ball can knock over, and it's twice the energy using a lighter ball. And the simple truth is you don't have any evidence. You haven't compiled any. You never even tried the experiment. Science never even took out a bowling ball and threw it down at the pins and saw if they could knock down more pins with kinetic energy. That kinetic energy could actually do work. All of the space arguments are models. So you're just arguing a model, and that's not a problem. So what's the issue? Okay, I could argue and bring data. So again, this idea he's going to bring his copy of an experiment that's been done over and over and over again, and that I would argue is subtle. Okay, there's subtleties to it. Unfortunately, in one case you have rolling wheels, and in the other case you have an air flotation system that's actually introducing energy into the system. 2 liabilities, okay. That drive science claims that his understanding of momentum matches Newton's. Yes, well, at least in the sense that Newton clearly believed twice the force, twice the velocity. 3 times the force, 3 times the velocity. Okay. That there was a clear equality between force and momentum. That's how you made momentum, was to create, apply a force. A force created an proportional amount of momentum. A proportional amount. It it doesn't. Shown right in the Principia. So again, he says the Principia shows, and no, it doesn't. Now there's this little piece where Newton's talking about, giving something, you have 11 units of momentum and you gave something 13 units. All right, I'm saying, no, that doesn't happen, Newton. But clearly, in Newton's second law, it's clear. 2 units of force, 2 units of velocity. 3 units of force, 3 units of velocity. Clear. So don't argue. There's no argument here. Your argument is that is not true. I'm defending Newton in that instance. You are attacking Newton in that instance. That NASA never uses conservation of energy. So this is just a lie. I've never said anything about NASA using conservation of energy. What I've clearly stated is they do not use 1/2 mv squared to decide how much thrust their thruster has. That's what I've claimed. So again, how honest is this guy, right? All right, so he's arguing in his conversation about having a debate, okay, and making accusations again, okay, insulting me, in the middle of that conversation, okay, that NASA has never uses conservation of energy. They absolutely do. So again, the simple argument was I already got him to concede, okay, that if you shoot the bullet out one side and you shoot the recoil of the gun out the other side of the ship, that yes, the ship doesn't turn. So even though you shot 2,000 watts out one side and only 2 watts out the other side of heat, technically, of thermodynamic activity, it doesn't matter, your ship's not turning. And that he regularly strawmans my position. So that's an accusation. I'd say you're the one who just evades every single subject and every single argument made. Okay, but the topic I'm more concerned with are which scientific models match with reality. So again, this isn't about a whole giant model. This is about a simple argument about whether momentum, as Galileo, Descartes, and Newton understood it, and 1/2 mv squared, which is Leibnizian theory, living force. So the argument is still the 350-year-old argument that wasn't resolved 350 years ago. And the one I'd love to be able to discuss the history with somebody who would willing to defend the horrible scientific history of this silly formula, because it's decisive. And it created, eventually, okay, so first you had Leibniz lost the argument. Then you had it resurrected in France with clay experiments that were, misunderstood clearly. And then you had in the 1800s the contrivance of a work equation to merely support your fake energy equation. And that's all it is. So you say force force times distance is work. And so now you're telling me the imbecilic fact that I'm not doing any work by holding this up against gravity. Because it's not moving, I'm not doing any work. That's your science. And I'm saying the science is glaringly insufficient. I mean, Einstein would say, what would he say to that? Right? Let's see, magic lifting, or, how do you explain how I obviously know I'm doing work? So why are you telling me I'm not? I mean, is your science that clueless? I'm obviously doing work and you're saying I'm not doing work. If I take 10 minutes to lift a heavy barbell, we know I did a lot more work than if I took 1 second to lift it. And that he regularly strawmans my position, such a lie. But the topic I'm more, scientific models match the reality. And that must be based on experiments in reality. So again, they don't have any experiments. People keep asking, why don't I prove that it doesn't take 9 times the fuel? Why don't I prove light doesn't bend twice as much? Why don't I prove that? Why haven't they been obligated to prove? I mean, the argument is so obvious. Why do I have to do the 9,000 experiments they haven't done, and yet are claiming it's an absolute fact, that they have this giant swimming pool full of evidence? It's just all over the place. They came to court and the evidence table is just piled with this mountain of evidence. And the absolute truth is they have one single experiment on the table. That's it. Nothing else. All right. It is those experiments and analysis that I've been covering in my testing physics. So he's just saying the same crap again, promoting his testing physics videos where he's not testing anything. He's just duplicating, just like Professor Lewin attempted to do, supportive one experiment that seems to support the theory. But you have to wonder because the experiment can be done poorly. As I pointed out, Brozo did an air cart experiment, right, where he took his hand off the cart and it started zooming down the track. So what is that? Oh, okay. You don't have, it isn't true that you have to be very careful how you do these experiments. Oh, no, that isn't a fact. All right, anyway. Which I recommend watching. So, look at this. He's just selling his videos to this guy. So you can see specifically what evidence I'm bringing. See, again, he keeps saying he's bringing new evidence. There's no new evidence. You haven't done a single new experiment. Every one of them is just a re-diagram, regurgitation of experiments that have been done over and over and over and over in classrooms. Okay, always with the same purpose, to prove your theory. But it's the only trick you have. All you can do is pull rabbits out of your hat. Okay, you can't pull rhinoceroses, you can't pull anything else. Please watch the original so it doesn't have draft science constant misrepresentation. So I play his videos. He plays nothing of mine, by the way. And he calls me the misrepresenter. All right, he's misparaphrased. He did it right there. I didn't say anything about NASA never uses conservation of energy. I never said any such thing, okay? It's just a lie. So his distortions, perversions, exaggerations, and overt mischaracterizations are somehow not apparent and obvious. Of course they are. Constantly intercut with the experiment and analysis. So again, a redundant, an insanely redundant experiment. All right. And he says we need to see the 796,000th version of it. Yeah, that's the important version. Version 796,000 of the exact same experiment. Well, that's the real proof there. It's ridiculous. I think a real indication of the proof is that Professor Lewin couldn't get the damn thing to work and had to smear clay on his cart. And in one other thing, I mean, really, I've made the challenge, please. There's videos with the Professor Lewin clay thing, and I've shown the two carts, and I've just made the simple argument. Can you really argue that one cart is twice as heavy? All the visual evidence points to no chance. No chance it's twice as heavy. I wouldn't want to host this myself since monitoring the stream quality. So again, not an issue. Monitoring comments. Why would we even be bothered? The commenters aren't going to pick up on something missed or do anything important. They're just going to do their little harassments. So why bother? And the other things that would be associated with hosting would cause at least some distraction from me presenting my points and listening to draft science points. So that sounds like just such a pile of crap, frankly. I mean, clearly. What the hell? Come on. We don't need commenters. You don't need the live chat in a debate between two people. Get real. To your comment of it's more convenient. If I'm going to do something, I'd rather make the effort to do it well than do it easy. So even that, what does that mean? Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, in a way, there's more pressure when you make a video response, okay? Because it's like writing something. You have time to edit it. You can make it more perfect. So when I'm making a response video and I watch somebody's video, I have time to think about it. I can make my best argument. But he won't choose that medium either. There's no commenters distracting you when you make your response video. There's no streaming issues to get in your way. So, what's this all about really? It's just about what I've been saying from the very beginning. He just keeps evading not only my arguments, but the entire obligation to defend conventional physics with more than one air track experiment. Oh, crap. It keeps going on and on, don't it? All right. Oh, well then. The reason why I care somewhat about all this is because I debate philosophy and text on YouTube. I don't know if I want to get into other subjects. So maybe we'll read what he said in response, and we'll just surmise what the other guy said. Because, I think science is philosophy and philosophy is science. I mean, I think philosophy is science. There's only science. There's only rational investigation and deduction and conclusions made logically. The evidence points to the next piece of... The facts point to the next fact. Anyway, both philosophically and scientifically. I mean, philosophy is really just a value, it's just the value portion of science. Physics can't do a value discussion, okay, because they can't measure it with a physical object. You can't measure value with a scale. You can't use a physical object to measure value. You need an intellectual functioning device to measure it. I agree with you on the difficulties of some interlocutors on YouTube comment debates. I do try to give rational justification in my comments. I don't know what that is. I hope I explain why I'm hesitant to have an unmoderated or self-moderated live debate, for instance. So again, I don't care about the moderator. Pick the shittiest moderator you can find. Pick your wife. I don't care. And especially giving justification in my videos. I don't know what that is. I'll try to make my science critical thinking series relate to epistemology. Well, it'd be nice if you just acknowledge the terrible history of the theory. I mean, it's a terrible scientific history. It really wasn't. The conclusions weren't based on good evidence and good presentation of the evidence. It was basically just mobs arguing with mobs, okay, and not the best mob won. In more conceptual terms, and then trying to apply those principles in my testing. He just keeps promoting. At least that's what I've been trying to go for. So again, this idea of testing physics when you're doing the same test that's already been done doesn't make much sense to me, frankly. What's the point of testing stuff that's already been tested? Okay, so I hope that this is evident that I've at least been trying to provide rational justification for both my claims and, more importantly, the methods of investigation that I guess, employ. I leave it to you to decide whether I've succeeded to your satisfaction. So, I don't think he's going to find it satisfactory, frankly. Clearly, it just looks like more evasion. I'm sorry to hear about the struggles you were going through. I know nothing of philosophy of ethylism, so I have no opinion on it. But if it helped you in a difficult time, then I'm glad. While I disagree with the last statement, I'm of the opinion that we can have subjective value. So that one's a funny one. And that's good enough for me. So he thinks it's okay for somebody to think it's okay for me to rape women because I enjoy it, and I don't think they matter. I mean, it's not a subjective truth. Sorry. Since I and the people around me, including YouTube interlocutors, whatever that is, are the subjects, so it can be valuable to us, whatever that absolutely crap shit means. If you found both a convincing case for and a framework for value in ethylism which had a positive effect on you, well, cheers to that. So it doesn't matter. If the philosophy makes you happy, then it's a good philosophy. Brilliant. Yeah, no. Sorry, that's really bad science. Sorry. Oh, God. I mean, people are just so funny. Silly. I mean, sorry. It's an absolute fact, okay, that nail in an eyeball is a bad event in the universe. And cupcake is good event. It's just an absolute fact. You can't deny that brains experiencing suffering, torture, pain is never, in and of itself, something good in the universe. If you have a bottle and you're going to pour something into it, you don't pour torture into the bottle. It's an absolute fact. Anyway, you are fine with the subjective value because you don't care about what's objectively reasonable. So this is some other fathead. Subjective values are equal. So he's saying all beliefs are equal, meaning your subjective values are equal to somebody else who believes the opposite. So there's informed and stupid. So it's just silly to say they're all equal. They aren't all equal. Some people are very good drivers. Some people are not. Okay, thus, furthermore, you have no good reason to punish another person. You punish people to create deterrence, retard. That's the reason. That's why we do it. Is because it deters other criminals. If somebody's leaving the store shoplifting and you trip them and they karmatically fall on their fucking goddamn shitty face, okay, and the damn shit they just stole stabs them in the fucking eye, well then you say karma, Cool. Yeah, excellent. You don't say, oh, I want to punish people. No, you want to just say, look, this is what stealing will get you. So basically, prison is a way of ensuring karma. It's just saying, look, karma doesn't show up the way we need it to. It doesn't poke the bad people in the eye. So maybe we need to do it for the karma so they know, hey, guess what? Doing shitty things means you get shit too. Anyway, it's just so silly. I mean, to have these arguments with people. Anyway, I'm not going to, that's philosophy. Fuck that shit. Let's see. The reason why people would agree with your subjective moral positions is because they feel like it's true. So this is more shit about feelings. And he's doing this on a science video where people are probably quite aware of the difference between a feeling and a thought. And that thoughts have to be in a context to justify them. A model. Thank you for letting me know both my position and my internal value system that leads to my position. So he's, being sarcastic. But frankly, it's all open to judgment. That's exactly what everybody on this planet should be doing, is judging the integrity of the evidence. The lawyers are making all kinds of sounds. They're picking up, look, here's the knife. Well, it's not the actual knife. I mean, I just bought it at the store, and I'm just saying hey, here's a knife. Well, okay, that's cheating, isn't it? All right, that's got to be really helpful, not needing to ask and try to understand somebody's position on a topic they haven't discussed. It is funny. I had said nothing about moral positions. Well, you sort of did. You said it's all okay. Everybody has their own little fucking bullshit opinions and they're just fine. No, they're not. Okay, are competing value positions just what I consider to be sufficient for me to value things in my life? Whatever, again, the point is it's all open to discussion. But rather just assert someone else's position. I don't know. For contrast, I would have to go through the intellectual heavy lifting of asking you what you mean by an objective value. That is one that can be rationally non-defeated as a statement. You can make a statement, water is wet. It can't be rationally defeated because the word wet was actually invented when somebody described what water is. Okay, so it's pretty a sure thing. The property of what is water, we'll call that wet. We don't care what it is. I mean, we don't care what the exact properties are. We're just going to say water's wet. So I'm just saying there's statements that you can make like that are just objectively factual. Okay, and it's objectively factual that sentient beings have very different sensations. Ones that are insanely bad, okay, way over there in the cavern, and nice, pleasant. Okay? And there's a cavern of distance between those things in terms of their wetness, their quality. I didn't want to do philosophy. Okay, so what was it up? Well, anyway, I just read this and I'll just shut up. That is completely independent of any evaluation by any subject. What? All right, objective value that is completely independent of any evaluation by any. No, it's not. It's not independent of evaluation. It's merely saying that the evaluation has to be factual. You're basically proving it. You're proving the case beyond reasonable contention, or how you solve the is-ought problem. So he thinks there's an is-ought problem. That is hilarious. Suffering is bad. Oh, there, I'm done with this problem. It's not a problem anymore. Problem has gone away. There's no is-ought problem. Okay. Bad should be prevented. There, we're really getting there now, aren't we? Oh, we're all out of is-at problem. Is-ought problems. Okay. From scientific measurements of what is or what we ought to value. What we do intrinsically value. Again, there's no one who's going to report differently. Now, I mean, there might be somebody you can pay to lie, but I think everybody's going to report that if I stick a nail in their eye, it's going to be an experience not worth experiencing. Okay. Allow you to present a case and then honestly consider it. Oh, whatever. I'd also need to go into more detail on what my actual position is. Oh, so he's more of a fucktard than I thought. For example, how I think that once you have a subjective goal like maximizing well-being and minimizing harm, yeah, that's good for you personally, but why wouldn't you think that's what the whole system needs? Which, while I agree on by everyone, yeah, again, the rapist doesn't agree. So what? Fuck him. He's stupid. He's not doing logic. All right. Is likely agree on what most of the reasons largely stemming from our biology and evolution as a social species. Again, yeah, go revert to nature. Nature is so smart. Let's ask nature what's right and wrong. You can have a set of actions that objectively move us towards or away those goals. The goal is efficiency. Okay, so you're just measuring the value, which is the momentum here, and you're just saying, where's the value? And how much of it did I preserve? How much of it did I conserve? And how much of it did I destroy with friction? That these actions should be subject to evaluation and revision, and the evaluation of the effectiveness of these actions. I can't believe he spent all this time arguing with this fucking troll. But anyway, let's see. But your method might be better. I should just tell you your position, cough it in some insults, and call it a day. Yeah, the fact is he's an idiot nihilist, but you didn't do a very good job of defending non-nihilistic philosophy. That is, pointing out how I can scientifically demonstrate that what you're advocating for leads to more harm than good, more bad than good, as rationally defined, as being a sentient experience, good versus bad experiences. That seems like it would be an objectively effective way of making a strong case and changing minds. Well, obviously that's not very objective, but whatever. Anyway, that is funny that they so easily slid into a philosophy conversation. And he complains that when I asked a question on a pendulum video about a pendulum, that I was off topic. Hilarious. Jesus. Duplicity everywhere. All right, so enough of the video. I wipe my hands of you people. So till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. Listen, there's such easy arguments. Oh, he's such an idiot. Well, there, 13 videos now. That's all you got to do. 13 little 5-minute videos. Go play one and say, hey, I know exactly where you made your mistake. And then point it out to me. What's the big deal? Oh, the big deal is you can't do it. That's right. You can't do it and sound rational or intelligent. You won't be able to do it and maintain your intelligent, perception of yourself. Because you'll know you'll be, all right, that's a good point, but whatever. You know that's what you're going to end up doing.